Hey friends, it's Peter. This is just a little bit more Zoom technical talk. A lot of people have questions as you're working to move your worship services and other meetings and programming online in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus and our required social distancing and other efforts. So I just want to talk a little Zoom techie stuff, all right? And I'm just gonna pull up my screen here and walk through some Zoom details, all right? So this is just in response to some questions I've been having. And if you have questions, feel free to comment on this post, video, send me messages, whatever. But Zoom has great tutorials. So just go to Zoom and search for whatever question you have and you'll get a video, okay? But I know people like context-specific tutorials. So here we go. All right, first, oh yeah, there I am down in the little circle. All right, webinars versus meetings. Zoom, and I'm just going to scroll down here a little bit. Let's check out this overview. First, all right, do a side-by-side comparison. Zoom meetings are designed to have lots of people on video, okay? So we're bringing everyone into a Zoom space, a Zoom environment with a focus on having people on camera. So if you think about the little Zoom meetings lots of us have, 5 people, we're all on video, and as you're talking, who you see featured on video shifts around. Imagine doing that exact same thing, but with 100 people, all right? So it's like lots of potential videos, video feeds, everyone on video. You can turn off participant videos, but it's focused on, the experience is focused on having everyone on video. And if you just look down the comparison for the Zoom meetings, the presenters, the featured people can screen share. You can everyone can share their video. To view, have a view only participants. That means to have people who are on that session, that Zoom video meeting session. Can you have people just come on as view only participants where they're not on video? It's not oriented that way. If you want people to come on and just watch what you're doing on video, that's more of a webinar setup. I'll talk about more of that in a second. All right, capacity, it depends on your license. Participants list, visible to all on the Zoom meeting. All right. Again, this is designed to have everyone be in kind of a shared meeting space where everyone's on video. You can do a chat. It does not have a Q&A feature. I do a lot of Zoom webinar trainings, and one thing I do love is there can be separate from the chat, like a chat box where people can just chat amongst each other, and also your panelists. With Zoom Webinar, you can set up a Q&A where people can send, if you set it this way, anonymous questions to your panelists. You can have questions be visible, but also as people submit questions, it goes into a little box and you can say, oh, I'm going to respond to your question via live on video, or you can write them a message back. I think for congregations doing large scale worship, or even a smaller size worship service, I think for worship where you want people to look at your video stream as it's being presented by some key leaders, worship leaders of the congregation, in whatever setup you've made, whether it's at home or you've set up a little space in your congregation, I think you're aiming for worship services for I'm thinking about people, if you have 50 people tuning in, participating in worship, to 100, 200, 300, depending on the size of the congregation, we're more sharing video for people to look at, interact via chat, etc., and not expecting everyone to be on video. So I think for most of you, your worship is going to be more webinar oriented, different from Zoom meeting. Okay, what else? With a Zoom meeting, you can push the video stream, so take the video content you're sharing and have it go out to Facebook, YouTube, and some other services. You can do that in webinar also. Registration. Do you want people, when you're doing your Zoom, to have people have to sign up and enter their name, email, answer some questions? Now, a congregation, you could set it up, and you can Zoom paid accounts can have registration, and then all webinar, which is a paid feature, can have registration. Think about, do you want to just send, if say you're doing Zoom webinar, you could set it up, or Zoom meeting, have a link where people can just click on it and they go into the meeting and they don't have to give you any information. As if I'm moving my congregation's worship online, it might be nice to know exactly who is in that space. Make sure you have their email contact. The other thing is that both, if you have registration and people are sending their email, if you're using Zoom webinar, so people are viewing a small number of panelists on video, they're not on video, they just got the chat, maybe a Q&A box. If you have them register, you can follow up with them. You can also set up, and I think this could be great for congregations, is recurring webinars. So you might set up a webinar so that if your service is every Sunday at 10 a.m., you might set up a recurring webinar. So it's like, hey, here's the one link for our service, which is just we're going to be doing this until we decide not to. So here it is. And people can get reminder emails when they register. So I think that will help you if we're going to be doing this for 2 weeks, a month. I have no idea. Consider setting it up so that people are registering and then they get the reminders. What other options are there? All right, breakout rooms here. What's a breakout room? If you're doing a Zoom meeting, and this is only available in Zoom meetings, so this works for smaller congregations. If you wanted to have 100 people in a meeting with their video potentially being shared, you can activate a feature. You have to go into advanced settings under meeting settings and activate breakout rooms. You can then break people into groups, small groups, where when you say go and press the button, from say you have 50 people on your meeting and with their videos on or potentially on, because they can turn on or off, you could say, all right, we're going to break out into small groups now, and you can either organize your small groups in advance or just have it be random and say, all right, I want people in groups of 3. And then you hit the button and boom, everyone is moved into separate little Zoom meetings of 3 people, and they can click to kind of raise a hand if they need a facilitator to come in. Some cool features. Now, for your large scale worship, I don't think you're doing breakout rooms. I have shared a model in some of my previous sessions how if you are trying to do worship more, do your online experience more like you're replicating small group ministry. You might have somebody sharing video messages, sharing what might be like in lieu of a sermon, because we want to keep it shorter online, via Facebook, YouTube. Maybe you're doing it via Zoom, but you might want to schedule a time, which could be during your regular worship service, where people come together and you actually break out into small groups. I would let people know that you're doing that in advance. If you're going to do that for a large congregation, you can up your Zoom meeting capacity to the point where you have 500 people who can join a meeting. And so you can have people come together at your scheduled discussion time where maybe your minister or whomever is speaking checks in with the community, shares a little message, and then you break into your small groups. But that makes sense that for webinar, it's more, you're focused on a small number of people. It could just be one video feed presenting, or you could have multiple. With the webinar, you can always, if someone's going to be on video on a webinar, they're a panelist. Let me just go back to a full video. If somebody is going to be on video on a webinar, that's called a panelist, okay? And they have all the full features of sharing screen and all that jazz. If you have participants on your webinar and they're just like tuning in, watching, and have the chat, you can always promote that person. Say your pastoral care associate or minister is tuning in as a participant, and then you realize, oh, we really want to hear from so-and-so, you could promote them to a panelist and have them go, have their video come on. So there's flexibility. So you really need to think about, how do you want to interact with your congregation, those worshiping with you, Using Zoom. Do you want to have all that video of Zoom meeting? Because like if you're just going to be presenting and you're not looking to interact with individuals, with their coming on video, well, you wouldn't. The whole orientation of Zoom meeting it's really not designed that way. Whereas webinar, I think is more appropriate. But again, like some congregations, some people might say, hey, we want to all get on video together. Well, that's one kind of experience. Something different to have people watching your core worship presentation, however you set it up. It could be different people speaking, this, that, music, whatever. Who knows? But with everyone else tuning in and just chatting. So think about that. Any other... Let's see. I'm just looking at some of the questions that have come in. How do you screen share? There's great tutorials on the Zoom website on how to do screen sharing. I'm actually using right now the way I'm able to do this and have my nice little circle and stuff. Ooh, look, is I'm using Ecamm Live. Hey, where's follow the bouncing ball? No. I'm using Ecamm Live, which is my little application, which I use to be able to manipulate how I'm, how my video looks. Green screen. I can do titling, various things. That's another video. Anyhow, so I hope that offers a little clarity. Congregation I'm working closely with, going to do Zoom. We're going to do Zoom webinar for Sunday services where people are just tuning into the video, like watching the video of the people presenting the service. For this Sunday, there's going to be a small number of people presenting, from the congregation, but people won't be attending. They'll just be watching from home or wherever. But there'll be the chat and maybe the Q&A. And then, of course, they'll be doing other programming using Zoom meetings and the Zoom rooms and all that stuff. So that's it for this session. Zoom meeting versus Zoom webinar. I'll talk to you soon. And keep calm and learn Zoom.